Hey parents, it's me again. Wanted to let you know what we've been doing this week in our 7th grade math. I'm not going to be on video today just because there's some things I wanted to show you as we work through the smartboard. Once again, we practiced more on adding integers. I feel that the kids are starting to get a pretty good handle of it. I still have a few that are maybe struggling a little bit, but that's where we've been working with the kids, that if they have the same symbols, they're going to find the sum. And if they have different symbols, they're going to find the difference. So just keep plugging away at those. Keep pushing your kids to make sure that they're not using their calculators on that. We do have times that we use calculators, but right now we're trying to learn the basics of integers. So this would not be a skill that I want them to use their calculators on. More recently, we worked on subtracting integers, just to show you a couple of things that the kids are learning this week. They did learn that here in this problem where we've got 6 minus a -7, that anytime they have two negatives that are right next to each other, it actually means the opposite of -7, which is +7. So they end up creating with this double negative a plus sign. And so then the kids would go through and actually solve through that. These problems, I tried to instruct the kids on maybe trying to transform them more into an addition problem like they did in the past, if they're more comfortable with that, but just making sure that they keep those symbols, like in this case, those negative signs that are with it. So they could rewrite it if they feel that they need to look like this. I am trying to kind of get them beyond that just because it's an extra step. And so therefore I kind of had the kids start looking at these subtraction of integers. Unfortunately, when we say we subtract integers, they're not always subtracting. Sometimes they end up adding. So I just try and have them look at the fact in terms of that they're really working with integers and that same symbol find the sum aspect. So like here, I have I try and separate them out so that they think of them as two separate integers. We know we're going to be doing adding and subtracting because there is a symbol of subtraction there between those two. But now instead of thinking of it as -10 minus 9, some of my struggling students, it's easier for them to revert back to that saying, hey, they have the same symbol. I'm going to find the sum of my digits. So that would give us 19. And now I'm going to apply the same symbol. So I end up getting a -19. Trying to just relay it back to things that I had already taught them when we were working with adding integers. The end of this week, which will be tomorrow, we're going to be starting in on multiplying integers. So that'll be fresh for the kids tomorrow. Multiplying and dividing integers for the most part is a lot easier than adding and subtracting of integers. There's not quite so much thinking. They multiply and they divide as normal, and then they get to count their negative signs. So that's something that we'll be working on starting tomorrow. Next week in 7th grade math, we will be covering continuing on section 3 again, and then we'll be jumping into section 4. So we'll be working with multiplying integers again, and then also dividing integers. And once again, I feel that those are a little bit easier for the kids to pick up on just because there's fewer rules, fewer steps for them to work through. We'll also be getting into working with the coordinate plane. And I know kids have worked with the coordinate plane in the past, so we're extending on their learning. One of the things that'll be new to them is understanding that there are different quadrants of the coordinate plane. They will be plotting points. They'll also be doing the reversal where there will be points on the coordinate plane, and they'll have to give the coordinates of that. Key thing on this is kids, whenever they're plotting, they need to go over and then up or down. Most common made mistake is kids will flip-flop those around. Same thing when they're writing them, they'll have to remember that when they're going to find a point, for example, this, and I know that my graph isn't very clear because I shrunk it down so that I could get it onto the onto my little notes here. They always need to remember that they're going to go over and write that number first. So like this would be a 4, and then they went up to 2, so then it would be comma 2. Kids tend to switch those two around. So if your student is struggling, that's one spot. Maybe double check to make sure that they're always doing the over and then the up or down. This past week, I worked with students on computation of working with orders of operation. I gave them a very brief quiz on Monday, a 2-question quiz. And then from there, I chose to work with students that maybe were what I would consider not proficient at that skill. I worked with them a little bit during Pride Time as well as directed study hall to try and increase their abilities. So They will be having a quiz next week where I'm just going to give them once again another one or two questions over orders of operation just to check to see where they're at. Now, the quiz that they took on Monday, I did not put in the grade book. It was more of an informative quiz for me as well as for your student to find out, hey, I do need more help, or hey, I've got this. I'm good at orders of operation. I'll do fine when I'm assessed on it. This next Wednesday, just a reminder, we will have a 2-hour early out. We do that every other Wednesday. So I'm going to use those Wednesdays for computation review instead of on Fridays, just because they're a shorter class period. Computation review is always going to be something that they have previously learned, and I'm using it to kind of hit a little bit harder with them to remind them of those rules. Now, my goal for this year is to increase 7th and 8th grade computation scores. So therefore, I'm going to be putting that into my curriculum and making sure that the kids are doing well. And as I see if they're not understanding it, when I give them a brief quiz, I'm going to pull them out and I'm going to work with those kids on those skills. So hopefully it'll pay off in the end when we take our IO assessments, when we see that STAR data, that they are being successful. So this next week, we're going to be reviewing the skills of adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing fractions. The nice thing about this is I am going to teach them a couple different methods with adding and subtracting fractions that may increase some of the kids' ability to be able to do that. I know that when you have to find common denominators, lots of times kids think that that's too many steps, and so therefore they kind of give up on themselves. So I'm going to teach them another technique that I kind of came across when I was on the internet, and so far when I worked with my 8th graders on it, they loved it. So I'm going to give the 7th graders a shot at it and see how well they like that method. So I'll go over that a little bit next week with you guys. I am having a quiz on Tuesday. I was going to have one on Friday, but I decided with what the kids were still struggling a little bit with integers. I didn't feel that I was ready to give them a quiz over that because assessments are a big part of their grade. I just wanted to make sure that they were feeling really comfortable with integers. So I moved that quiz to Tuesday. So the quiz on Tuesday will be over sections 1, 2, and 3. So that's working with identifying integers, working with orders of operation. Section 2 is adding integers, and section 3 is subtracting integers. And then I will have on that quiz a couple questions over orders of operation. So that quiz you will see in the grade book. I'm hoping by that time the kids are comfortable and they're ready to go. That's about it. That's all I have for you this week. So if you have any questions, make sure you email me. Enjoy your weekend.